Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Maribel Rodriguez, and I'm the Bilingual Program and Outreach Associate at Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And with me today are co-host Dr. Audrey Lau with the the Adult and Senior Programming Specialist in the Programming Department, the Library System. Also, not here due to illness, but was a big part of the planning and encouragement for this event is Jaylene Walker, the Staff Development Coordinator and Workforce and Community Development Team Lead. So we are grateful to be joined today by Liz Taufa from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. I want to mention a little bit more about Liz's background before we begin with the presentation. So Liz Taufa is a policy attorney and strategist based in Washington, D.C. Her work is focused on U.S. citizenship and immigration advocacy, particularly naturalization and policies related to equal access to immigration benefits. Prior to joining the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, Liz was a senior attorney with the American Bar Association's Commission on Immigration, managing their detention information line. She began her legal career representing children in removal proceedings at Catholic Charities and previously worked as an attorney advisor in the Office of Legal Access Programs at the Executive Office for Immigration Review. So this is not the first, rodeo there. She's a native of Winchester, Virginia, and holds a bachelor's degree from the State University of New York at Buffalo and a law degree from Northeastern University School of Law, where she completed internships with the ABA's Immigration Justice Project in San Diego, Greater Boston Legal Services, and the Office of Immigration Litigation. She also volunteered with the International Refugee Assistance Project. So, Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you please maybe start with giving an overview of the Immigrant Legal Resource Center and the work that you do with the organization?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. Audrey, if I could have the slides up at your convenience, please. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Taufa. I am a senior policy attorney and strategist with the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, or ILRC. I am based in our DC office. A little bit about the ILRC. We are an organization that was founded in 1979 as a law school clinic. So we have a long history of providing resources to immigration practitioners and the community. We're headquartered in San Francisco, California still, but we do have offices in DC, which is where I work, and also throughout California, including California's Central Valley. We also have offices in Texas, throughout Texas. And so we have very strong networks in those localities because that's where our offices are. What we do is sort of threefold. Our traditional role has been to provide legal resources and trainings for practitioners. It's how we got started. It's something we still do. We provide a lot of webinars, practice advisories, trainings in person and online, geared toward making sure that immigration practitioners have the tools that they need to represent their clients. Recently, in the last 10 years or so, we've really started to build up our policy advocacy space, advocating for fair immigration policies at the state, local, and national level, which is a big part of what I do. And then we've also got a wing of community organizing and making sure that we are providing community organizers and community organizing groups with resources that they need in order to advocate for fair immigration policies, and also providing community resources to the public directly. All of our resources are available on our website. Please feel free to take a look at it. I'll have the links to all of that at the end of the presentation. But we do have a large number of our resources available on our website for anybody who needs to see them. So I wanted to get a little bit started today. The name of this presentation is Welcome to the United States, Know Who Can Help. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about where you can find some resources and some help if you are experiencing an immigration emergency or some sort of enforcement, but also how you can help support your communities if you are not in danger of being detained or being at the hands of immigration enforcement. There are a lot of things that you can do as a supportive community member, maybe as a supportive family member, and there's a lot of ways for you to get involved. So knowing who can help really does start with yourself. everybody has rights. Everyone has rights, regardless of their immigration status under the United States Constitution. Um, you don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to have permanent status. You don't have to have a work authorization or anything. The fact that you are here in the United States means that you are protected under certain constitutional rights. These rights include the right to remain silent, a right to legal process or due process, the right to refuse to sign documentation that's handed to you by law enforcement, the right not to produce documents, and protection against unlawful searches. Um, One of the questions that I think has been sort of percolating around different spaces in the last year or so is, if we have these rights, we might see that these rights are not necessarily being respected by law enforcement, as we've seen on the news and whatnot. And why should we bother asserting our rights? Um, the main protection that we have under the US Constitution is these rights, but if we decline to assert them, they will go away completely. So everyone should continue to assert those rights. And that goes for US citizens too. We spend a lot of time in the immigration enforcement space, but you're a US citizen, you also have rights, and these rights that we're talking about apply to everyone. So everyone should continue to assert their rights whenever they come in contact with law enforcement, or just generally. We all have the right to due process. We all have protection against unlawful searches. We all have the right to remain silent, which is probably the most important right that we all have. Sorry, next slide. I want to just highlight a resource that you might know the Immigrant Legal Resource for. And these are our red cards. So these have been part of our resources now for more than a couple of decades. And they are literally a red card that lists out these rights for you. So we have them in 56 languages, which is far more than we did at this time last year, but we've experienced quite a growth in the number of languages that we have them available. If you're a part of an organization, you can you can order red cards on our website, and we will ship them to you. But they are all 56 versions are available for download on our website for free. So you can download them, make your own. And these red cards are literally tools that you can hand to a law enforcement officer that explain that you are asserting your rights. You're asserting your right to remain silent. You're asserting your right to speak to an attorney. You are asserting your right to due process. And then on the other side, there are some explanations of your constitutional rights in whatever language you want to have them in. So please check out our website. We do have all of those languages available and for free download on PDF. They're actually really easy to print on. We recommend that you do them on red cardstock. The idea behind them was that they were a red card, like you see in soccer or football matches, to say stop. You have to stop what you're doing and hand that card to law enforcement. So they're easy to print. They're easy to laminate. I've seen people do it with packing tape. And so that way you can take it and put it in your wallet. So moving on, aside from asserting your rights, if you are supporting somebody who's at risk for immigration detention or immigration enforcement, or you yourself are at risk for immigration enforcement or immigration detention, it's important to kind of know how some of the carceral systems work. And one of the most important things you can do at this moment is locate somebody who's in ICE custody, somebody who has been arrested either by federal immigration officials or other law enforcement. That's really the first thing that, if you are supporting somebody who is in this situation, that you need to do. You need to find out where they are, especially in this time when people are being moved around a lot. There's a lot of coordination between state and local law enforcement with federal immigration authorities. There's a lot of coordination between different types of federal law enforcement, not just immigration authorities. So it may not be abundantly clear when the person gets arrested who they were arrested by. So you want to start always, if it's a person that's been arrested as part of a workforce raid, or it's been very easily identified that they have been arrested by immigration authorities, you want to start with ICE custody. And you can look for folks on the online detainee locator system. So this is on ICE's website, and the link is there on the slide. You can search for a person if you have their A number, which is their registration number that they get that follows them through all of their immigration proceedings and country of birth. If you do not have that A number, you can also search with biographical information, and that's name, country of birth, date of birth. One note about the ICE detainee locator is that you might need to try various versions of the person's name. For example, if a person has two last names, they may be in the locator under just one of the last names, or the order of the last names might be switched. So you might have to try a bunch of different versions in order to find the person. Same thing with date of birth. Month and date gets switched all the time. So you might have to just try a bunch of different combinations to try and find your person. If you do locate them, make sure you write down exactly how their name and date of birth appears in the locator so that you can find them again. If somebody is in one ICE detention facility, it is possible that they could be eventually moved to a different one. And so you're going to want to have that information so that you can find them wherever they happen to be. Once you locate the person, the name of the detention facility will pop up. You can click on that detention facility, and at that point, you can find more information about how to contact the detention facility, how to contact the ICE officer that's in charge, how to send things like mail to the ICE facility. All of that information is available on ICE's website. However, given the fact that there's a lot of coordination happening between different law enforcement offices, a person may not actually appear in the ICE detainee locator, especially if they were just arrested. It usually takes at least a day, usually 48 hours, before somebody will appear in the locator. So that means that they maybe haven't been processed yet. In that first 48 hours, they'll be sent to a processing center where ICE will decide whether or not they will be transferred to an ICE detention facility or if they'll be released. So after the arrest, they process them, book them, and may then also issue them a document to appear in immigration court or instructions to come and check in at an ICE field office. But if the person is not released, there are some other places that you can try to find the person. So if it's been less than 48 hours, they're not popping up on the locator, no matter how many times or different ways you put their name in, you might start calling some other places to see if you can figure out where they are. You can always start with the ICE field office. There's a link there to all of the field offices. You're going to want to start with the field office that's closest to where the person was arrested, and ask me where they have been and where they are and what's happened to them and whether or not they know whether they'll be transferred to a facility or released. You can also reach out to the person's consulate for their home country. Consulates very often have better information and more access to federal records for their nationals than the general public does. So a consulate may be able to find out where somebody is before they're uploaded to any kind of system. One caveat about consulates, you want to make sure that the person that you're helping is not an asylum seeker. Asylum seekers, by their very definition, are running from their home country because they're either being persecuted by their home government or they're being persecuted by a group that the home government cannot or will not control. So it may hurt their asylum case if you reach out to the consulate because they are running from a hostile government and you don't necessarily want to alert them to the fact that you're looking for this person and that this person is in custody. It's also possible that somebody may have been arrested on other charges that are not necessarily just immigration violations. The fact that they are without immigration status or are non-citizens of some kind is compounded by the fact that they have also been arrested on a criminal charge of some kind. So federal immigration or federal criminal charges will kick you over to the Bureau of Prisons. Again, you want to look for the location that is closest to where the person was arrested. And then more often than not, it will be with local law enforcement. So we see this a lot with folks who are maybe arrested during protests or during, the commission of some other kind of incident. If there's been a lot of confusion, they may just the local police may just arrest the person and keep them in the local law enforcement holding cells. Um, Sheriff's offices, local law enforcement offices generally do have some sort of locator on their own website. So you just have to go to the office, the website of the office where the person was arrested. You can look for the person in that space. So as we are talking about this, there are a lot of unknowns that we're dealing with right now. I think if you watch the news and you're interested in this area of the law, or if it's affecting your community, you know that there's a lot that is sort of up in the air. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to why people are being arrested, when they're being arrested, who they're being arrested by. So the very best defense that we can all do is preparedness. And by preparedness, I mean thinking about if you are yourself in an unstable immigration status. So you're in danger of being arrested by federal immigration authorities. Um, then you are prepared. You've done some work to prepare so that your support network, your family, your friends, your employer could potentially help you to get some resources while you are incarcerated. Um, on the flip side, if you are supporting somebody who is in unstable immigration status or is at risk for being the subject of immigration enforcement, you can work with them to build this a preparedness plan and figure out all of the information that you need in case something does go wrong. We all will hope that nothing will go wrong and that you'll have the plan and never use it. But in these very uncertain times, preparedness is the best defense that we have. So, what can we do to prepare? What do we mean by a preparedness plan? So, we always start with the first pillar, which is you got to know what your rights are. Again, everyone has their rights, regardless of what your immigration status is. If your body is in the United States, you are covered by the US Constitution. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right not to sign anything. You have the right to talk to an attorney. So that's the first thing you can do. Know what your rights are and be prepared to assert your rights. You should practice if you are uncomfortable with this. Standing up to law enforcement can be a very daunting endeavor. So practice with your friends, your family, your community on what you will say if you are arrested. Get yourself a red card, put it in your wallet, and just hand it over and remain silent. You can figure out what your own risk assessment with that is and what you want to do. But always know that you have rights and that you are entitled to assert those rights. It may not stop you from getting arrested, but you do have those rights and you do have the right to remain silent. The other pillar, another pillar of this is making sure that you have a plan. A lot of folks have that don't have stable immigration status may have U.S. citizen children or non-U.S. citizen children, folks that they care for, elderly family members, pets. We have those as well. Um, you may have, a job for which you need to inform your employer what's happened. And so what the best thing you can do is figure out what will happen to your various responsibilities if you are arrested, not knowing that if you will be released or if you'll be detained. um, Make sure that you have a plan for who's going to care for your children, what your health insurance for your children looks like what kind of activities they have. Make sure that you are, if you have an attorney, that you have the contact information for that attorney is with somebody that you trust who is going to support you. These are all really important things for you to think about as you are building your plan. And the third pillar that we're going to talk about is understanding your immigration options and knowing where to find reliable help. And again, this is information that if this is not your situation, you're a U.S. citizen, you are not in danger of being detained by immigration authorities. This is information that you can use to help support your community if you are in a support space. So just some real quick tips about the family preparedness plans. These exist on various websites. A lot of organizations have some version of a preparedness plan. I've linked the ILRCs because I am partial. I think it's the best. But it does not have to be this one. There are many good ones out there. And this is specifically a family preparedness plan. So it was created with the idea that you needed to make sure that you were making a plan for the care of your children and if you were arrested. However, it is a blueprint of a plan of action. You don't have to have a family or children in order to find this useful. This will help you create kind of an organized plan and make sure that you can access important documents, information, or the person that is detained has given you access, if you're in the support role, to all of the important information you'll need in order to support them while they are detained. So it generally includes important contact information, so kids, doctors, schools, and other folks, the child care plan, who's going to take care of your kids while you're detained, and is a guide to what kinds of documents you should start collecting. And these can be limited power of attorney documents, if you have an ongoing immigration process, receipt notices and copies of those documents. Again, if you have an attorney, making sure that that attorney contact information is there so that once your support network knows that you have been detained, they can reach out to that attorney and let them know so that they can start working on figuring out what the next step is going to be. So again, you don't have to have a family in order to use the family preparedness plan, but it can be a good way to sort of organize your thoughts and think about some things that you need to put together in a centralized location, and make sure that the folks who are going to be your support network through this have access to that, so that they are not moving around trying to find all of this relevant information in what's going to be a very stressful time. I wanted to provide just some information about legal consultations. Again, that third pillar of knowing what your immigration options are is one of the best things you can do to be prepared. We often see folks in a lot of different statuses. We have U.S. citizens, we have lawful permanent residents, we have folks that have like refugee status or asylee status. We have folks that are applying for things like asylum or applying for their green cards, that's lawful permanent residents. We have folks that are in temporary status, things like temporary protected status, deferred action, DACA, people who have parole status, folks that are in some different types of status. And if you are not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, it is a good idea to get a consultation with a trusted attorney or accredited representative. If you have been screened in the past, maybe you were screened a couple years ago, there weren't like a lot of options, or there were some options but you weren't ready to move forward with them. Now is the time to get screened again, if possible. Please keep in mind that only a licensed attorney or a Department of Justice accredited representative can give you advice about your immigration case. There are a lot of folks out there who mean to help, maybe know a lot about the immigration system, but they're not licensed or accredited. And so they are not allowed to give you legal advice about your immigration case. There are also people out there who are looking to take advantage of people in these times of uncertainty and chaos. So the best thing you can do is really make sure that you are getting that legal consultation, and that the person you're getting that legal consultation with is a legitimate representative or attorney. There are some ways that you can sort of tell that a legal consultation is on the up and up. A consultation has to include information gathering, and that information gathering should be about your own case. It should not be about, oh, this other person who is from the same country that you're from And their case was like this. It should be information gathering about your immigration history, your criminal history. It should be information gathering about your family situation, about anything pending that you have with either U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services or the Immigration Court. All of the information gathering the representative should be doing should be about your specific case. Any legal representative should also be discussing any recent changes in policy that may affect your case. There's a lot changing in this area very, very rapidly. It can be difficult to keep up, but a practitioner should be able to say, here's what the situation is now, and here's the risks of applying now, here are the benefits of applying now. They should give you an assessment of whether or not they think you have a strong case. Those should all be happening in your consultation. Again, they should also be telling you the risk is high because you have this piece of your history. You have a criminal history. You've got multiple immigration entries that you've never reported before. They should be looking at all of the potential red flags in your case and letting you know about them and helping you to decide whether or not you want to move forward with an application process. When you go in for your legal consultation, make sure that you have questions of your own. And again, every single case is different. So your cousin's case, who was very similar to yours, might have some very large differences. So don't assume that just because your cousin got his green card, that your case will be the same, you will also get yours. So make sure that before you go in for the consultation, you have a list of questions that you need answered about your particular case. And before you leave, you should get an answer from the representative whether or not the organization or law firm can take your case. We are experiencing a bit of a lag in legal services. A lot of legal service providers do not have as much capacity as maybe they once did. So it's very important for you to have a good idea of whether or not the organization has capacity to take your case before you leave. And if there's a wait list, make sure you get on it if you want that person to represent you. And then the final thing that you really should know before you leave the consultation, if the person agrees to represent you especially, is that you need to know what the total cost of the services that you're going to receive are. Most attorneys and representatives will work either on a flat fee schedule, which means they will say, I'm going to file these pieces of paper, like these applications for you, and this is how much it's going to cost. Or they'll say, okay, I charge X number of dollars an hour. This is how I bill hours. If you call me on the phone and we talk for 10 minutes, I'm going to bill you for half an hour, that sort of thing. You should know what the payment structure is. If an attorney or representative will not discuss payment with you, will just say, oh, okay, well, we'll figure it out later, that's probably a red flag. You want to make sure that you are very clear about how much representation is going to cost you, how much application fees are going to cost you, and what kind of timeline that you're looking at in order for paying. So if some of the work could take, a really complicated case could take $10,000, $15,000. If that's something that you are going to move forward with, ask about payment plans, ask about discounts, but just have a really clear idea of what your payment is going to look like before you leave. You want to make sure that you're trying your best to avoid fraud. It can be very difficult to spot fraud across a lot of different areas. And immigration is one of those areas where, unfortunately, there are people out there who are looking to take money from somebody and will not file something for them, or even worse, will file something for them that is completely fraudulent. A fraudulent case, even if you were not fully aware of what was being filed on your behalf, a fraudulent case can keep you from getting benefits for which you're eligible down the line. So you really want to be careful about representatives that are maybe not the most scrupulous. So remember, only attorneys and DOJ accredited reps can give legal advice. You can find legal service providers, which are usually organizations that provide free or low-cost services. You can go to the Immigration Advocates Network. They have a legal directory. You can search it by zip code or state and city to find legal service providers near you. Those are all vetted organizations. So if their person works for those organizations, it's probably a step in the right direction. Um, for accredited representatives, you can also, my slide cut off a little bit here, sorry. You can also look at the Department of Justice recognition and accreditation roster. So if you are meeting with somebody and you say to them, are you an attorney? They'll say, no, I'm an accredited representative. Make sure you have their name and which organization they work for. Accredited representatives must work for an organization. They cannot just work by themselves like an attorney does. They must work for an organization. It doesn't have to be a big organization, but it does have to be an organization. And once you have their name and the organization they work for, you can look them up on the rosters and make sure that they're there. What you can't see on the slide is that for licensed attorneys, in the immigration space, an attorney does not have to be licensed in the state where you are. So I live in Maryland, but my bar admission is in Massachusetts. I have one in Massachusetts, New York, and the District of Columbia. So I am able to practice law in Maryland because I am an immigration attorney. So in immigration matters, I can practice law anywhere in the 50 United States because immigration law is a federal area of the law. Your attorney does not have to be barred in the state where you are, but they do have to be barred somewhere. So when you meet with an attorney, you can ask them, what state are you barred in? And if they don't tell you, if they say, well, why do you want to know? That's a big red flag. They should just come out very easily and say, oh, I'm barred in Florida. You can then go to the Florida bar website and look the person up, again, first name, last name. So make sure you're doing your sort of due diligence before you hire somebody. Check them out. There are some tools to make sure that people don't have don't have bad intentions and that they are actually qualified to provide you advice and representation. So I just have a couple of contact information for some local immigration legal services organizations. Again, please keep in mind the capacity restraints that these organizations have. There's a lot of strain. There's a lot of people who need help. But make sure that you are holding on to some of these numbers in case you do need help. So rapid response organizations in the area, there's the Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid, CASA, which is a larger organization but focuses a lot in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, and the Immigration Rapid Response Hotline. These are all places that you could call if you are arrested by ICE, or if you're having an issue, or if you see ICE activity, you can report it and get some assistance. Again, the Immigration Advocacy Network Legal Directory is where you can find legal service providers. And if you are looking to hire a private attorney, a great place to start is the American Immigration Lawyers Association website. Most of these attorneys are private. They do charge for their services, but if they're on the AILA website, it's a pretty good indication that they're a legitimate immigration attorney. So you can look them up there, and then you can also, again, look at the state bar where the person is barred and make sure that they're still barred and that they're not under any kind of discipline or anything as an attorney. I want to leave you with just some resources. Again, some of these are on our website, but there are also some resources from different organizations. So there are some Know Your Rights videos if you want to see some skits and some examples of people asserting their rights before law enforcement. You can find them on that link. If you are an employer, someone that hires folks, that you have some employees that are not U.S. citizens, it's always a good idea to be prepared for what could be a workplace raid. So there are some resources and guides for employers, some resources and guides for students and schools, if in case there's immigration enforcement in or around the school area. And of course, our family preparedness kit, which is available in English and Spanish on our website. And as a shameless plug, please consider following the ILRC. Again, we have a lot of information for practicing attorneys and legal representatives on our website, but we do also have a lot of community-facing resources, explainers of different developments that have come up. So please take a look at our website. We are also on all of the social media accounts, and we do our best to try to make sure that we are providing up-to-date information quickly and accurately on your social media feed of choice. So please check us out. We're here to help. And yeah, that's all I had. So I think we maybe have some questions. You can probably take the slides down.
Thank you so much, Liz. Very important information for us to keep in mind. We do definitely have some questions of our own, and also some questions we just got today through the chat. So we'll start with the participants' questions. This one is, what if you've had a bad representation or have been scammed by a lawyer regarding your immigration case? Do you have any recourse?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. It's hard to give give information without knowing the full scale of what the situation has been. There's always recourse to try and show that the person has you've been the victim of a scam, or that the representation was willfully incorrect. There are various remedies if you had bad representation. If you had a criminal case and nobody explained to you the consequences of taking a plea deal, for instance, what the consequences would be on your immigration case. Sometimes you can take a plea deal that is less or no jail time, but will throw you into a category of criminality which will make you removable from the United States. And so, if your public defender or your defense attorney doesn't tell you what those consequences would be, there might be recourse to try and get that remedied. It is very difficult once you have been flagged as filing a fraudulent application for something in the system. It's very difficult to overcome that. You definitely don't want to file anything else or move forward without finding representation in more better representation. So you're really going to have to sit down and talk with an attorney, explain the situation, bring copies if you have them of things that were filed on your behalf, even if you didn't know what they were filed. You can file something called a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, for your own immigration file. And see what was filed on your behalf. And if you file that FOIA, or if that attorney files your FOIA, they'll be able to look through the records, see where the issues were, and then make an attempt at correcting that if you are eligible for something else and want to move forward for that with that process.
Wonderful. And we'll go back and forth with questions we see in the chat, so feel free to add those there. But I will segue into our own questions. One of them is about the presentation as well, and still with the legal aspect of today. And this one is, is it normal for a lawyer to charge for a consultation session, or would something like this be one of those red flags that you mentioned earlier?
It's not normal. I would say, in my experience, and this isn't the case for everybody, in my experience, consultations are usually free. Um, it's not necessarily a red flag to have somebody charge a consultation fee. If they're charging, $50 or something along those lines, I would say that's probably okay. It's a little annoying, I think, but people have to make money, people have to pay bills. So um, so something that is kind of reasonable. If they want $5,000 for an initial consultation, that's a huge red flag, because that says, a $50 consultation fee says we want you to be serious about, that you actually want to talk to us. So that's what that does. 5,000 sounds like, okay, we're just going to milk as much money out of this person as we can without doing any actual work. So it really does come down to the amount of money that the person is charging for a consultation. But in my experience, even with private attorneys, the consultations are free. They're probably limited in time to, half an hour, 45 minutes. But they usually don't charge for consultations. But it's not per se a red flag to have a charge for it. It's just the amount might give you some pause.
Liz, we have another question in the comments, so I'm going to put it up here. Does your organization...
I think, Audrey, you're on mute.
Oh, my bad. Can you hear me now? Nope.
Audrey, I can
Go ahead.
take the question. So thank you so much for asking. The question goes, does your organization or any of the resources shared provide assistance for filing for a family member to immigrate to the States?
Our organization does not take cases directly. We do have some practice advisories and some information on our website about the process of filing for a family member. It's kind of colloquially called consular processing. So you can find some information about that on our website for sure. Again, you're going to want to speak to an attorney or a representative before you file anything, just to have them go through and make sure that everything is correct before you file anything for sure. But please check our website out. We do have a number of resources. Some of them are pretty detailed because they're geared toward immigration practitioners. So they might be in very specific areas of the law, but we do have some more general information on our website as well.
Very helpful. Keeping with the theme here, you mentioned earlier that the Department of Justice is a resource for legal representation. Seeing that this department may have changed its perspective or intention and what I can maybe observe, perhaps you can correct me if there's an assumption there. Is this still a resource that can be trusted by the community?
It's a great question. And my answer is for some of it, yes. I would stay away from getting your information directly from like press releases or news articles or something along those lines, because the public affairs function of a person at one of these departments is much more political. And so they will maybe not give a full account of what the answer to the question would be. But I think things like the Department of Justice rosters for accreditation and recognition, those are still very much to be trusted. If you go to the USCIS website on instructions on how to file an application, like maybe you want to file an application for naturalization, for instance, the information that you're going to find there, the instructional information, is going to be pretty trustworthy, because it has to do with how folks are navigating the system. So I would say, the sort of the government websites that are about the process, and where you can check people, I'd say those are still pretty trustworthy, but be wary of executive order language, be wary of press releases, or anything like that.
This is a great nuance to understand, because personally I was confused with that as well recently. So great. We have another question in the chat. Thank you so much for asking, because this is really your time, and so we want to make sure those are there first. So here we go with this one. Can you provide guidance on what an individual should do if they are recording an ICE-related interaction and they're told to stop filming? Should they stop filming if they are instructed to do so?
So you do have the right to film the interactions with ICE. You don't have the right to interfere with the enforcement action that's taking place. And so what we always recommend to folks is, if ICE is saying you need to stop filming, you need to you're interfering, you take a step back and say, I'm not interfering, I'm just documenting. And you kind of keep to that talking point. That does not mean that you will not be arrested by law enforcement. Again, we're asserting our rights. You do have the right to film police interactions. Again, you don't have the right to interfere. So if you are, shoving your camera or your phone into the ICE officer's face as he's, putting handcuffs on somebody, you might be interfering. But our kind of evergreen advice with that is that you have the right to film. If you are confronted by ICE, you can take a giant step back and say, I'm not interfering, I'm documenting, and just kind of continue that way until the interaction is over.
And if I may add here, in the We Have Rights link provided earlier, there is a great video about how the distance at which you need to be standing for recordings like that. And then an alternative, if I remember correctly, is documenting a written documentation of the observation if you perhaps think it's a risky thing to continue filming. There's another alternative as well.
Absolutely.
I forgot my turn to ask the question. And again, please feel free to send your questions. We're glad to have them. So this other thing that came to mind is going a little bit into a different part of the the aspect of what we discuss is the preparation.
Mhm.
Um, we got a great idea of who's it for, um, but sometimes we may not see the need for it because maybe of one part of our identity that makes us feel confident that everything's going to be okay. Um, is this family preparation document, just to reiterate, is it more for some people and less for others? Should we all be trying to prepare and write everything down? What's your idea on this one?
I think that if in this particular climate, I think that if you are not a US citizen, it is a good idea to make a plan. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make a plan for childcare, right? Like you might be in a two-parent situation with your children and your spouse is a US citizen. And so your childcare plan is your spouse is going to take care of the children. And so you may not need that part of it. I think the part that is important, and this is a great question, I think the part that is important that we're hoping to make sure that folks understand is that if you are at risk for immigration enforcement or detention, you should have information somewhere in a centralized location, whether it be a digital or in paper form, that has all of your important information, and you should have someone that you trust that has access to it. So even if it's as simple as you have a friend that you trust really well and you say, okay, I'm going to call you if something happens to me, and that person has access to your A number and your attorney's phone number. Like that could be as simple of a plan as you need. Just know if you get into trouble, who you're going to reach out to, and making sure that that person is equipped to provide you for whatever level of support you need. And it could be as simple as, you call one person and they make sure to get in touch with your family, and then your family will take it from there. Um, it could be as detailed as, again, making a full childcare plan, making sure that there are multiple people who could care for your children, and making sure that your health insurance cards are included so that in case the kids need to go to the doctor, that's where they go. It could be as complicated as establishing someone that you're going to sign limited power of attorney to, so that should you and hopefully this isn't what happens, but should you be removed from the country, they can access your bank accounts. They can access your, any information that they need for, to pay your mortgage or something along those lines. It really is, it's a resource for you to think about what it is you would need in the eventuality that you would be detained and not able to meet your responsibilities as they stand now. So again, we like that one, and again, we made it for with the idea for folks because people were asking, well, what happens to my kids if I'm deported or I'm detained? So that's the reason we made it, but it is I think much more applicable. And you are the only person that knows your current situation and the things that need to be taken care of and what's covered and what's not. So it's worth it to sit and have a think about what isn't covered and how do you make sure it's covered in the eventuality that you are not there to cover it.
Thank you so much. This is great. It really helps us think about future planning as
Mhm.
a whole, and as a general topic as well as something important to do, so that we're not, surprised. Uh, and thank you everyone again for your questions. Keep them coming. The other thing to think about together is what um, what can someone do? This is sorry, one you haven't seen yet. What can someone do if they are observing a situation, if they're an ally and they want to help out? So some of the viewers here might be in that situation, and not everything would apply, but just something for them to also take with them.
I mean, I think it's very different if if you're just in a situation where you're sort of on the street and you're trying to help, so you're witnessing an arrest and you're trying to help. There's always the documentation that there's knowing the numbers for the rapid response networks who might be able to just sort of activate and help that person. It could be as simple as trying to figure out what the person's name is, so that you can try to help the friends or family locate them. So if that's your situation, If you're in more of a preparatory mood, you can always get involved with your local rapid response networks, and that can, that can look like anything from manning a hotline. A lot of rapid response networks are responding to more of the societal sort of needs that folks need. They need access to food or access to clothing or something along those lines. So those sort of solidarity networks can help. You can plug in a lot of places there. Um, you can also get involved and, conduct know your rights trainings in your various community spaces. The great thing about know your rights trainings is that they are really for everybody. They're not just for immigrants, they are for everyone. So if you have access to a church network or a community center or something along those lines where maybe these kinds of things have not been discussed, you can always bring it up and learn how to do a know your rights training on your own. There's lots of resources online on how to do your own know your rights training. There's lots of resources that you can hand out to people and have them and have them readily available. So I think it depends on what the situation is, how much time you have, how much work you want to do ahead of time. But there are lots of places where you can get involved in order to sort of respond to some of these things that are happening.
This is wonderful. Thank you. Good to know what else we can do. The next question is, how might we react in a situation where maybe we do mention our rights, but they're not respected? And yeah, I'll stop there and then continue with the next part of that question.
It's such a complicated thing because in a perfect world, we are a country that has very specific enumerated rights. Everyone is supposed to have the right to due process. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Everyone has the right to remain silent. Everyone has the right to legal counsel. All of these rights are rights that we all have, and in a perfect world, they would be respected without question. You wouldn't have to assert them because they would just be respected. But unfortunately, you do have to assert your rights, and that's not a new thing. That's something that has been the situation for decades and decades. So the best thing you can do, and this is probably a very unsatisfying answer, the best thing you can do is assert your rights while understanding it may not help keep you from getting arrested. It may help you, right? So, they may say, okay, well, it's not worth it to go after somebody who's asserting their rights, or it's going to be too difficult, or something along those lines. But if they want to arrest you, they will find a way to arrest you. But that does not mean that you should not assert your rights. And always, 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 no matter what the rights are, you have the right to remain silent. They cannot make you talk unless you agree to talk. So you always have the right to remain silent. So if you're going to remember one right, that's the one you should remember.
Thank you. Wonderful. I'll transition into a few more before we wrap up. So this one is, what are employment impacts that you are seeing on a daily basis as you're processing the cases that you might see?
Yeah, unfortunately, we are seeing a sort of narrowing of access to employment authorization for folks, is particularly for folks who are in some kind of more unstable status. So folks that have temporary protected status or deferred action or parole, folks that have their work authorization as the result of having an application pending. So those with asylum applications pending, or those that have applications for green cards pending, have the right to apply for an employment authorization document or a work permit. But we are starting to see that kind of get clawed back. First of all, we're seeing those with temporary protected status and other more temporary statuses. We're seeing those statuses revoked. So once the status is revoked, the basis for the work permit is revoked. So what we're hoping to impart to people is that if you have a work authorization, you should ensure to renew it as soon as you can. USCIS will take it pretty much whenever, but they recommend that you wait until you are 180 days away from the expiration of the card to file. If you file it before then, they may issue you a new work permit card, but it will have you'll have cut off a chunk of time that you were authorized under the old card. So yeah, so I mean, there's right now not a whole lot has changed overall. One of the big changes for employment authorization is that there is no longer an automatic extension of your work permit when you file to renew. It has been that way for many, many years that as soon as you filed your renewal application, your work permit was automatically extended for a period of time. That is now over. So you really want to make sure you're being mindful of when your work card expires and applying at that 180-day mark as soon as you can.
Great to hear. Maybe this will be the last of these questions that I'll ask. What is something new that maybe is a new opportunity that you do see when it comes to work authorization avenues?
I mean, I think that new opportunities in this climate are few and far between, unfortunately. Um, but we are seeing a lot of litigation to try and stop some of these kind of harmful policies that have come through, and so there are windows then that people can get their work authorization, right? Another thing that I'll make a plug for in this space is, again, get the legal consultation. If you've had temporary protected status forever and it's ending or you think it might end, get the legal consultation. Even if you've had one in the last like 4 or 5 years, get another one, see if you're eligible for anything else. This is really the way to be able to normalize status. You might be eligible for a green card and you don't even know it yet. So make sure that you're really looking at all your options. You're getting a qualified representative to go through your options with you to see if there's any way that you can get into a more permanent status, if there's something else you can file. Your situation from 10 years ago may be completely different now under different laws. The time passes and eligibility shifts and changes. So it's really important to get those consultations regularly just to make sure that you're accounting for any sort of policy changes. So that's an opportunity. If you've been okay in a temporary status because you've just been able to renew it and you've got your work permit and everything's good, now is definitely the time to look and see if you may be eligible for something more permanent.
Wonderful. And maybe our last question, this time is for real. We we just want to ask, what is one thing that you can leave us with that might give us hope?
I think that the thing that I have drawn hope from this year has just been the incredible solidarity we've seen, certainly out of immigration spaces, but out of the broader communities more often. I mentioned at the beginning that we did not have as many languages for our red cards a year ago as we do now. Um, the fact that the communities have stepped up to protect one another has been just an incredibly hopeful thing. Programs like this, where folks come and they ask these really insightful questions about how they can protect their community, that's an incredibly hopeful thing to me. No one is, people are not despairing, even though there's a lot to despair about. But the way that communities have stepped up to protect one another in a regional and like very like home-based sense has been really just the most inspiring thing. And I could say that I'm surprised, but I'm not. If you do this work, if you're in this space, you like that was always going to happen, but it's no less inspiring and hopeful to see it happening every single day. Watching communities push back, watching communities get access to information that's important to their communities, watching people step up to protect their neighbors. It's an incredibly hopeful thing, and something that only grows as adversity grows. So I am very lucky to be in this space, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to talk to all of you today in a space similar to this.
Thank you so much for answering so many of our questions today. And we don't have much time left. So if anyone in the chat has a question, this would be your time. Um, but otherwise, Audrey, do we have 1 more minute to work? Okay. So I wanted to show you a little bit of what the library offers, and particularly something that is available online for those who prefer that kind of resource. And let me know when I can share my screen.
You should be able to.
Okay, thank you. So we have something called the Workforce Development page. And this is one resource that is available to you all. Um, you should be able to see it now. First thing is, know that our website, you can translate the information into your preferred language. So if it's Spanish or Amharic or Pashto, this is where you can go. And this is one aspect, is the resource library. one aspect of the page. It's not the only aspect, but this is where you can find some of the information that you might be wishing to see more of. So this is one very, very large section here um, with information about who is trusted in the community, like Ayuda, as you may have heard before, BIPOC mental health information, things related to policy, our own Immigrant Proud page, which we don't have time to look at today, but we can. So this is one aspect um, of this workforce development page, and what I like about it is that you can refer back to it as you see fit. Let me transition into one last thing about this page, and then we could move on. Bear with me. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So here you can also find, this is the home screen for it. You can also find past online program information. This was really helpful if you're local in the Maryland area. There's lots of data as to what kinds of um, jobs might be available. At the top, you can see we have some recommended job boards. In case you're not familiar with all of them, they're kind of a broad um, choices there. And then there's one section for us for that is relevant in the community. So I'll jump straight to that one. So it's this section here. We named it English as second language, but it might be relevant to broader community than that. So here you can see, for instance, if you're thinking about legal services, this is one aspect there. And some things related to community colleges, you name it. This is one piece of the puzzle that may be helpful for you. Um, this is probably one of our more recent ones. If you need a pro bono consultation, you can see this number. If you're looking for maybe something convenient through WhatsApp, here's one. So this is the Maryland Pro Bono Resource Center, another one to keep in mind. So this is the kind of information you can find here. I think is the most relevant. So but last thing is keep in touch with our events as well. So this one was highlighted there. We do have things called like Seekers Club. For instance, Mount Rainier has one. But you may want to join the next thing in your journey as you move forward with every plan you have. So I will stop sharing this one, and maybe just know we do have something called Immigrant Proud page, which is where we'll see more of the relevant resources, and we will just add the information in the chat as opposed to looking at it together. But there you can also find the Department of Justice guide and things like that. Yes. Any questions, anybody, before we close off? It looks like we don't have any more questions in the chat. So because it looks like we're unfortunately out of time, I'll just thank Liz. I'll thank you once again for taking the time. Yes, for sharing so much of your knowledge, information, resources. For those of you watching, thank you for tuning in. Please let us know what you would like to see next time in the new year. And then if you have a chance, keep in mind that at Bladensburg, little last library plug, we do have a naturalization program maybe once or twice a month. So this is provided by Migrants Empowered. This is another great organization you can look into, one of our partners. And so that's something that we offer at the library. Share this video with your friends, with family, with neighbors, anyone you think may enjoy it, need it, or be interested in the information we offer. And once again, this was possible thanks to the partnership of Immigrant Legal Resource Center. So check them out, and they'll be here. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.